If you were absent, please bring me your compare and contrast paper. Okay, so this is the compare and contrast. I just don't want to get them confused and then reading it and going, oh, this isn't the compare and contrast. Okay, then the next paper I need is the rough draft of the problem solution paper. And it was just one.
Dude?
Just one of them?
Yeah, that was because we were going to do peer review, and then everybody said they didn't want to do peer review.
So, I have a question for you. There's multiple ways to write this problem. Is there? Because I wasn't sure like formatting it, right? Because I did it as in, this is like my thesis, like topic of like what I can write to that, and then I did like, this is the solution, this is the solution. That's okay? Okay.
Yeah,
I was freaking out last night at work. I was like, when she showed us, it was like really different. And I thought about it later. I was like, oh my gosh, it's 10 o'clock. I can't fix it. So I'm just like, okay.
No, did you give alternative views?
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure.
Anybody else?
Maybe I did. I just.
No, that's fine.
Your solutions, I mean, really, solutions are don't have sex.
Yeah, maybe.
That's the best part.
That's why I put acid on there. I put it on there. Any others, guys? Before I. Okay, so like I said, I know that was a lot, but you guys had a lot of time in between to kind of prepare because I flip-flop things to make sure that we got it all.
So with the rough draft, were we supposed to turn in the outline, or because I thought you already checked that?
Because I came by and checked
Okay.
it already.
Just checking. I don't want to screw it up.
Trust me, I have grabbed so many papers. My husband's like, do you just live with the papers in your hand? I'm like, yes. And I grade 2, and then the next one I grade 2. So, okay, who wants to go first for presentations today?
I want to get it over with.
Okay. When the sign-up came around, did you put your presentation in?
Yeah. And my group kind of fell apart, so it's just.
You want me to log in here for you? I have a call-in. Apparently there is a way for you guys, and it's just, I don't know if you're using your first name and your last name or your S number. And then it's like your birth date. We'll check it out. Yeah. I'm so glad somebody's hot this. He tried to run me over today. No, not really. He did?
Yeah, I saw you this morning.
At Starbucks?
I don't go to Starbucks often. People don't give me enough free drinks or coffee.
Oh, is that his? My people would be better, huh? Sure, Starbucks is coming your way.
This is the paper you were looking for.
I am all about Starbucks.
Okay, guys, let's pay attention and remember, again, we're going to kind of play devil's advocate. We're not trying to be mean to anybody, but we're kind of trying to show them that they can look at other views.
I'll make a copy of the flyer so you can have one.
Yes, but give me a minute. Go ahead and listen to hers, and then I'll send you on your way after.
Okay, I chose to talk about the market housing issues in Colorado Springs. I don't know how many of you have a house for sale, but if you do have a house for sale, it's likely that your house is not selling. Just so you know. Okay. The market in Colorado Springs, according to the most recent article articles I read, they say that the market is turning, although that's somewhat questionable if you look back on the statistics, but I got a nice quote from Turner and Associates that the market, they think that the actual, quote, sales market is getting better. And the biggest threat is that there are too many unsold homes on the market. Most people are having trouble selling because if they sell, they're underwater, which means you may have paid $200,000 for your house, but you're only going to get $150,000. So if you sell it now, you lose $50,000. And I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't sound like a good way to do things. A lot of houses have gone into foreclosure, so there's lots and lots of stuff on the market that's from the foreclosure part of the market. And lending has been an issue, although I think that's improving. So they claim that it's over, but if you look at the statistics, I really don't think that they've improved that much over the last couple of years. This is actually just since September of last year. It tells you what the average and median sale prices for homes in Colorado Springs. The statistics are from Price Association of Realtors. Like I said, they say that it's over, but I like the part where the Turner Associates say, let's continue to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Because I don't think that it's over for us. My humble opinion here. So apparently, from everything that I read, it would be best to reduce the amount of unsold homes on the market, which asks the question. Sorry, I got one more statistic for you. These are statistics for rental properties. As you can see, they have fared at least moderately well as comparison to what the sales market is doing. All this leads to why isn't my house selling? Well, first and foremost, I don't know how many of you have driven down the street and seen, 3 or 4 signs on every street of houses for sale. And if they do sell, it's most likely that they'll do it underwater because they'll sell for a loss. So my approach is what is the alternative to selling your property. Should you keep it or should you rent it? Jill Schulsinger, I think that's how you pronounce it, with CBS Money Watch said, the reality is that sometimes renting makes more sense. So should you keep it or should you sell it? And my advice at this point would be that you should keep it. If you decide to keep it, then you have a question of, do I manage it myself or do I have a professional do it? A key component in renting your property is, to me, is that you find a professional property manager. The rental markets, according to the statistics, say that they're between 7 and 10% vacancy rate. What this translates to is approximately 32 days on the market for a rental, where a sale right now is averaging 89 days on the market. And that's an average. So if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. And if you hang on to your investment, it's a better way to go. Turning a home into an investment property can be a very good option. It can also be very scary because you still have a large asset to be responsible Renting works out when the landlord and the owner come to an understanding about what they expect from each other. Usually, a real estate agent or a property manager can actually get more for your property than you could manage it yourself. What I'm promoting today is a group called NARPM, which is National Association of Residential Property Managers. The Colorado Springs chapter has about 75 members. It is a nonprofit organization. We do lots of philanthropic work, but they strive every day to cope with the issue of the housing market in Colorado Springs. They're with the real estate professionals who know firsthand the unique problems and challenges of managing single-family homes and small residential properties. It offers an effective professional learning environment for owners of property management companies, property managers, and their support specialists. NARPM is unique in, sorry that the print is so small, in that they require their members to commit to a code of ethics. Now, if you get your real estate license, you don't have to commit to a code of ethics. If you become a quote realtor, they have a code of ethics that is specifically targeted to sales agents. This is the only group that I found that really focuses on what property managers should and shouldn't do in the business. First and foremost, their job is to protect the public. When you go through real estate school, you learn that that's supposed to be what all real estate agents do. Although the only real estate agents that no questions when they are asking you about the commission. They're not allowed to discriminate. They have a duty to their client and a duty to their tenant, which means the owner and the tenant. Those duties are specifically laid out in their management agreements. They're required to keep their rental properties in good condition. They're also required to be accountable for all the money that comes in and goes out for that property. They are expected to be experts in their field. They have a duty to support their own business, but at the same time they are supposed to not be competitors with each other. They're supposed to help each other, which is very rare in the real estate world. And then price fixing. Price fixing is when a group of real estate agents get together and say, oh, you have a house in Briargate. Well, I'm giving you $22.50 a month for that. And the other guy goes, well, I'm going to give you $11.50 a month. And they go, oh, well, maybe you should adjust the price. So they kind of get together and they adjust the price based on opinions and not necessarily statistics the way they're supposed to. So they're not supposed to do any price fixing. They are also required to continue their education and to improve their profession. If you have a property that you're trying to sell, I recommend that you contact the local NARPM chapter to see what your options are for property management.
So, okay, so the one thing is there's one fix that you could do here, right? One option. Of course, there's going to be more options, right? So I think you can do rent to own.
You can.
And even these property management places sometimes help people with that, don't they?
They do. I personally have a problem with rent to own programs.
I do too, because they charge so much more.
Because if you're the renter/buyer, it's very easy to get screwed.
Yeah.
Very good. And it really benefits the person that's selling.
Right. It is slanted.
So yes, it is an option,
But
to me it's not a great option.
It's not a great option for the renter per se, but it does sometimes get a person into a home if they want a certain area. Like I have some renters who, I rent my home. I have some renters who need that area because of special needs for their kids. They want them to go to certain schools and that, but there was no option for them to be able to own right away. And so rent-to-own options are out there. So there's more perspectives than
Well,
just.
you have to realize that, if you're a property manager, you have to be licensed for the state. So, you know, you can sell. I found that when I was doing property management, I could either sell or I could rent, but I couldn't do both of them very well. So I chose to be property manager.
And then any other options that you could do for selling them or for the bad market? How about keep your house for a little while and, you know,
What if you have to move?
you have to move, it's a little different. But
Yeah, that's
You know what,
what
if
it
you
is.
have to move, it really is a good option to find a property manager. Property management services are tax deductible, and you have somebody in the city that can check on your property, and if they're good, they check on everyone.
She didn't go through it, but when they were talking about the ghost properties and things like that, those are sometimes properties that like will kind of like our unemployment numbers, where unemployment numbers all of a sudden went up, where it's in favor of the president, but what they neglect to tell you is how many people have just dropped out trying to find jobs, and how many people are now out of insurance because it's an insurance that you're actually collecting. So if you collected the insurance, and they kept extending the insurance until a certain time, and it's kind of funny that the certain time that the cutoff was right now, where the president can use those numbers as his favorable numbers, and so people know how to manipulate. Same thing here with the housing market. If companies like Richmond and building, people who are building, not necessarily just selling a house, like the houses that are already sold, if they want to give you the perception that the housing market's better, then they're going to hold stock back. So even though they have it, to make it look like their numbers are shooting up for the things they're selling. I know this because I built their stairs. Okay.
So do you guys have any questions about American or about renting versus selling that I didn't answer?
Definitely look that up. These guys some of them are too young, but I think you would have.
I've been in that.
I still have one house in Arizona that I have a professional property manager that takes care of it for me. We bought it when my son was born, and now it's about 80% paid off. So I'll eventually be able to go back and be a snowbird in Arizona.
Is that what you were telling me?
No, it's not. Actually, when I left Arizona, I didn't ever want to go back. No, it doesn't sound quite so bad.
My parents said that too, and they're back.
Yeah.
That's why it's so warm.
Yeah. Yes.
Your body's
It's
getting
hot
cold.
there. But
Okay, we could be your parents. Okay.
sadly, yes, we could.
Okay, who's next?
Okay.
Thank you. Great job. Boys, if you want to go ahead and make those copies, and then we get the next group. My husband's from California, and we're far from it, thank goodness. Never want to go back.
You know, it's interesting. There's a lot of people that are here in Colorado from California.
Yeah.
We're up.
It's huge. The two that seems the biggest, I think, is California and Minnesota.
Yeah.
Everybody's from Minnesota. Of course, I thought Alvin was should have.
I like that.
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yeah.
You know what? I like it now, but I didn't like it when I was a kid. Yeah.
All right. You guys doing the-
So, I guess we did ours on the golden era probably. Mainly it was from the 90s cartoon, not too much anything else. I guess I really did for that. Good old 90s.
This is back when things were a little bit more original. than
I'm
they are
sorry,
now.
is 90s considered the old days?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Old now.
Go on.
Alright. The good old 90s. Back when the cartoons were original and things were just getting kind of started into animation and 3D animation and stuff like that. Cartoons used to provoke thought, used to provoke emotions, teach a lesson. At the very end, at least you learn something, even though it's kind of stupid. You still learn something a little bit.
A little bit exaggerated, but the moral, it was still there at the end.
Can you give an example of that?
I think you're going to, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dragon Ball Z. All of us. Okay.
That's the one with the really whiny guy in it, right?
Yeah, this is.
Oh, no, that's Naruto. Sorry.
This one is, I think it's like barely 90s. Last lesson to learn, cartoons used to teach moments such as the power of friendship. Basically, show Dragon Ball Z was pretty much a competing kind of show, but it kind of gave you the feeling that everyone, even though they were still fighting, was still able to maintain a friendship. They taught you things like smile when things seem tough, believe in yourself and others, and never back down from anything.
Because along most of the plots, they were all doing their infighting, and then they realized there was a bigger threat, and they put their differences aside, and they worked together. Which is something that we have to do in society on a daily basis now.
One of the lessons learned in these cartoons was not taking things for granted and to appreciate what you have. Like Johnny Bravo, a lot of his morals for that.
One of the episodes, he freezes himself and goes back in time and realizes that no one knows who he is. And he figures out that he really does miss everything he used to think was annoying. Okay, back then the FCC didn't really care about what cartoons actually allowed in their TV or on their cartoons. For instance, one was Powerpuff Girls, if anybody remembers. They were, the professor made them out of, in his laboratory out of sugar, spice, everything nice, and then chemical X and whatnot. He made 3 powerful girls. He's like, says, well, hello there, Ron. It's nice to see you. You guys aren't even named. I'm the professor. Bubbles just like, yeah, you're just in our laboratory and accident. He's all proud of himself. What can I say? He said, don't worry, professor. I was an accident too. Except in little weird things.
Little jokes for the parents that had to sit through and watch with their kids.
Now you have to be careful what you say because you might offend someone causing a frivolous lawsuit. Because if they can't sue you, they will sue you for anything. So everything is a guideline, and it's hard to actually creatively think nowadays. Nowadays, it lacks creativity.
CIS is a great example. How many incarnations of the show has there been, and is it any different than the first? Aside from maybe a few little differences in characters.
I don't know. I think I'm getting better on knowing how to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Don't you feel that when you watch those shows? Like, oh, I totally murder somebody.
I could do that. I could get away with that.
I do love that. Now you brought it up. I do love that commercial on the Clue, the whatever Clue commercial where the girl's going around. They keep trying to find all these clues about, and the husband's sleeping, but she thinks he's dead.
teaches you 0 lessons, little to no substance. It's just flashy lights and pretty much anything that will catch somebody's eye. And lacks pretty much overall good for viewers. Networks pretty much shut down anything interesting because it may offend somebody.
Yeah, have you ever watched the Teletubbies? Ugh.
That's it. What's up?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, this is not over. You can ask.
I'm just wondering about like, what about stuff on, I feel like stuff on Disney Channel is really less annoying to still to this day. Hannah Montana. I have a younger sister, so I know. I know.
Granted, there are a few, but like, what realistic lesson does that sweet life on deck show that 2 14-year-olds can live in a ship that go to school and date everybody else in the ship? That doesn't make sense.
Bad luck.
Have no parents around for like years.
But there's usually what's not good with it.
I mean, yeah.
About like, you should have not lied to your parents or something like stupid stuff.
Yeah, it's true.
Sometimes they get in trouble too, I've seen that show.
Yeah,
they do get in trouble.
It's more or less the cartoons that actually don't teach anything.
Like Victorious, I just watched that the other day. It's amazing. Yeah.
South Park.
Yeah.
No, it's funny, but
But
I
that's
wish.
it. So, the top left picture is a TV show called The Annoying Orange, and it's just a Photoshop face on an orange, and they talk, different fruits talk to each other, and that is it for about 35 minutes.
That's the show?
Yep, and
It
that's
started
what
as a-
entertains people.
It started as a YouTube
It used to be a
video.
YouTube video.
It was 5 minutes of that making a god-awful laughing sound.
That's it.
That was it.
And if you, on the right, if you look to the top, you guys can probably recognize.
Guys.
You guys can probably recognize the top at least 80 to 90%. There were so many variations of something because it was all original, everything was good. And if you look at the bottom, that's all Cartoon Network has now. If you look at all the characters, the whole front row is one show, back row is one show. It's like 5 or 6 shows. And that's what you got on the Cartoon Network. The rest is just commercials and filler. This is what kids are watching. TV networks assume that anyone will buy anything. There's no creativity, the assumption that people will just watch just about anything that has to be watched. Flashing lights and driving colors. They basically go from point A to B with a filler. It's like, you get to the beginning of the show, you think it's going to go somewhere, and at the very end, you're like, wait, what? What is even happening?
Sometimes it makes me wonder what kind of trip they're on, because like even my son, he'll watch that one with the dog,
Adventure Time.
Adventure Time, and that's like he wants to go with the boy. He wears that stupid white hat even and has a backpack. And I try to watch it, and I'm like, what?
It's nothing but
Psychedelic drug.
It's random
Yeah.
elements thrown together, and they hope something good came out of it. There's no point to it.
It's like Willy Wonka. Yeah.
So, how can we fix bad television, lacking creativity, lacking morals? Stop recycling old cartoons, morphing them around and calling it a new idea. On the left, it's a TV show called Johnny Test. And on the right, right now, there's Dexter's Laboratory. In Dexter's Laboratory, the dad was the worker, the mom was the cleaner, the sister was annoying, and the brother was the nerd. Now you have Johnny Test, which is these days it's still on Cartoon Network. The boy is the dumb one, the sisters are the smart ones, the dad is the cleaner, and the mom goes to work. The dog still fits in there somewhere, and all the villains are basically the same type of person, same everything, down to detail. Just jumbled. That's it.
The dog is kind of his conscience. The dog can talk. The dog kind of goes into the conscience.
That's all it is just Dexter's Laboratory, but morphed around. And there's so many other cartoons and TV shows that are just the same thing, but in reverse pattern. Or different order. Like, has anybody ever heard of the show Breaking Bad? A show about a teacher, a chemistry teacher gets cancer and finds a way to cope with it by selling that. Now there's I forget what it is, nice teacher or something. It's an older one. when a teacher gets cancers, he finds the fun things in life instead of, I guess, selling that. But I mean, it's basically all
fun.
Yeah.
No one goes to that.
Very true. But yeah, it's just everything is just jumbled around and all of a new idea. Solution.
We need more creativity in the writing and in the screenplays and just in the overall creation process. Better plots, better storylines, ones that actually make sense. Things that go from point A to point B to point C with interesting little twists and turns that you might not see come along the way, that still fit in, that don't take you straight from A to D back to B.
So what a suggestion would have to be bring back, if you're going to continue to make things like this, bring back the same style, the same writing, the same everything as were the 90s. Like everybody remembers all the good Disney movies, Lilo, Stitch, Nemo, all those things that were like farther back. They actually had plots and stuff. Like now movies are just pointless. Like I think I can remember one movie was completely dumb. It's about hamsters in a ball or something that they raised.
Oh, they were spies. I've seen that one.
Oh,
Yeah.
G-Force.
Yeah.
So it's like spies.
Yeah, it's for kids that are obsessed with that show. They need to be big after
Oh.
Great. Make shows that make sense that aren't a slap at viewers' intelligence regardless of their age. So it's not just with cartoons, with anything. Pretty much put something that would make somebody think, would keep them entertained without having to, insult their intelligence. Conclusion, the 90s were way better. Need to lessen the FCC's grip on television. Nah, be more original with things. Stop recycling. It's kind of monotonous to see the same thing over and over and over.
And the sad reality of it is that it comes down to, and this being somebody who's into marketing, it comes down to it's more cost effective to, okay, if we could just morph this, and I can make a totally new show, and I don't have to pay, the screenplay artist, I don't have to pay all this stuff, and bang, I have something. And so that a lot of the networks, will do that. They have the same, they have the same artists on this show as this show, and so they can keep the artistry going, and they don't have to change. So that's one of the reasons why I think that you get a lot of that recycle. But the world is also very cyclical in the way that we live. And your guys' era thinks the 90s are better, and we think the 80s are better.
I think the 80s are better.
I don't know. The 70s.
70s had some. I don't. 70s had some good stuff. 70s movies and things like that. 70s and 80s are better.
One thing you didn't mention that I thought maybe you should was violence in the cartoons. Mm-hmm. Because I know when I was younger that became a big issue because Tom and Jerry, which was on all the time, okay, of course they always beat the heck out of each other. Mm-hmm. And so that, and the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, they were always fighting with each other. So then it became a big deal that, we should make cartoons that teach a lesson, which is how the 90s cartoons got to be. So, but I think violence is still an issue in the cartoons.
Yeah, especially with the, what was it, the one where you throw all the cards out, stupid little puffball thing around. It's a creature, but what is it? I hate them all. They're all cartoons. I will not watch these cartoons. Okay.
Or SpongeBob?
SpongeBob, yeah.
Man, this one nowadays was like obsessed with it. It seems like every episode it's like the same thing over and over again. I'm just like, what did I learn from this?
Okay, yeah. I agree, but some of the things, guys, that you would have to look at, it would be a little bit more persuasive in manner. Now, you didn't have to look any of this up. I said it could be from your own thinking. But if you were presenting this, say, at the some convention of some sort.
Comic
And somebody's going to go, now wait a minute, Naruto is really, really creative, and what else are they looking at? Animation is the CGI. All of this stuff they're putting so much money into that sometimes they forget about, I can't pay for storyline if I'm paying for CGI kind of thing. So you're going to have those perspectives of people saying, we put a lot of money into this, or we did this, and it is very creative. I do think it's original and creative. I just think that how many people have ever went down to the warehouse? Have you been to the warehouse? Okay. It's this place, and it's a place to go eat, but it's also this place where they have all kinds of local artwork and you can sell it. And I look at this artwork, and literally I could do this. Yeah. And then put some like green or yellow right there, and then call it like $500. Shh. I call that shh, and it's like, I can see it. Yeah. So you know what I'm saying? And then charge $500 for it. And I'm going, how is that art? How is that talent? My 3-year-old could do it. And yet, it might sit there for a few months, but somebody bought it and think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I'm like, that isn't talent. That doesn't take talent. I don't get it.
Or down in Denver, when you see like little structures and like little art things, and like, what is that? I'm like, I can't even see what that is. Like, and they spent tons of money on it. It's like yeah, it's like make a sculpture out of it. I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, there's a huge thing about talent, what they call talent, what they call originality, and I don't get how you can have a song that has the same riff, and then this song, the one song about, I danced on a table and I did this, it was right after Friday night. Last Friday night. That one?
Oh, Katy Perry?
The Katy Perry song, and then the one girl that did Friday, which I knew was the joke of the year. But think about it, that's the same concept. There is no talent whatsoever in those songs, but it sells because it sells sex, it sells this, it sells that.
Isn't that crazy? How sex sells and we don't want it to, but it still does.
I don't like that song. I also it just irks me. I just don't think it takes any talent. You know what? Even the hair bands in the 70s and 80s, they know how to play all their guitars and all of their instruments and sing and glammed it up and had the huge freaking show. And then you have these guys that dance like this and they're making billions. I just don't get it. Or like this. Yeah, really. You know what I'm talking about. All right, guys, you're up. What is it? What's his name?
Gay. The Chinese.
Yeah, he dance like that. That's like, he's a millionaire.
It's a Korean star. Oh,
How did you get $1 million? I teach people every day. I don't get anywhere near $1 million. Okay, who's left after these guys? I know you went with your sad. You guys went. You've gone and you've gone and then you've gone. You guys did your animal? Fire. Your guys is fired. Who did you work with? Okay. And what did you guys do? The animals. So it's just these guys? It's already logged in. All you gotta do is
He has it on his email.
This is what we talked about last time. You were here last class. I don't know if you'll be able to log on.
Today is the first day of class, but I'll be
You can try to log on, which would be, I think, your first name, last name, and then the birthday.
No, I think it's your S number and the month and day of your birth.
Okay, it's your S number and the month and day of your birth. Try that. And if it doesn't work, we'll hand it out.
I actually have not had a car. My grandfather.
Here's a sign. And then make sure your group is
Like,
on.
my grandfather on your entire table. $2,000, it's actually $2,000 and like plus we can hold it and it's like, yeah. We touched it. You can hold it. You can see it. I'll bring it in and show you. Yeah, no, I stole it. No, I put it, I've been like, I'll make school, like, when I was in splash, I was like, you have to walk out and throw my backpack. You're going on hard. I swallowed that. That looks like a chicken. Yeah.
I don't think I have enough people signed in.
I didn't know we were supposed to sign that.
Is that the same as the daily sign-in?
Yeah, I forgot
Okay.
to sign in.
Okay,
So I said,
just checking.
I grabbed my book bag and I was like, oh, that seems light. And I just walked out. Didn't even think of it. For once, I'm not hurting my shoulder. You get her?
I was doing Krav Maga, so no one my name. I dropped out of it. That's very
My husband has scores. I have my third right belt. There's not many girls. There's not many practice. No, I teach and right. We own the school. My husband and I own the school. Or I'm in mine. Every Tuesday and Thursday night for as long as I can think of. Did it work?
No, alright.
Nice. How about this? You guys can talk off of one. We'll hand one around and then. Okay.
Alright. Our headline is Bad Construction, constructed by me, Damar, Joseph, and Matt. Have you ever noticed that they're always working on roads that don't need to be really repaired? This is a problem in my eyes, for there are roads that really need to be worked on, and maybe that if they did get worked on, it would provide faster means of transportation and more means of transportation.
Most of our common roads are like main roads, Powers, Constitution, pretty much every Walmart parking lot, Nevada, Palmer Park, Peterson, just a bunch of the main roads, short and bumpy, not really worth much.
We came up with a solution. Our first solution is to come up with new ideas for repairing and like building the roads and stuff, so that they can decide for a better cost. Look for the most efficient way to construct the roads so the traffic flows better, and scheme the roads to actually link together. Because in town, you haven't noticed there's some roads that just don't connect when you think they should. And then the second solution is to work on the actual roads that actually need it. So like, they didn't even really have to work on Powers. It wasn't too bad. But there's other roads that need to be paved that way. So the third solution is fastest and a variety mode of transportation in Colorado, so like have more bike lanes and walkways, stuff like that. So if there's more people like biking, then it's easier to drive around.
Roads such as Oregon have to get past license and arrange where they have nowhere for them to walk and can't drive or anything else. It's just the roads on dirt, houses are really not there than just the road.
So that's it.
Would that not cause more construction to add bike lanes?
Yeah, but if they, okay, say they finished like doing all bigger construction then, and they just stopped doing what they were doing after they were finished doing it. So like,
But then they would have
there's
to
a period.
construct
There's a period.
Construction of places that actually need it rather than just
Yeah.
adding more up.
There you go.
Well, how many times have you seen, like, they decide, okay, this is Powers, and they decide that they're gonna work on this section of Powers, and so they tear it up, and they do whatever it is they're going to do. And then a year and a half later, they're going to have to tear that whole thing up because they decided to go ahead and go the rest of the way through. They do that all the time, and it just ticks me off because you're like, they just took this up. And
the intersection of William and County, the city got that for free, and that's why it's so horrible, because they wanted a new bridge and overpass there. And so since the city got it for free, they constructed it just poorly, and the lights are off. You guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So yeah, since the city got it for free, they figured, oh, a new intersection, but it was just poorly constructed, so they should have just left it.
You know, it's actually, but I do think that it has brought a lot less traffic.
It has.
Like, I feel like a lot of people, like, I know that I get frustrated with construction, but sometimes it's not what we can see, it's what they actually have to do under the road. Sometimes there's like underlying things that like have to be fixed.
Like on-ramps.
Yeah, exactly. Like some stuff that like, or, you know, it's like we don't even realize. So sometimes it's like, yeah, we think it's unnecessary, but we really don't know what it's for. Sometimes I feel that way.
I do think that we do have to look at infrastructure. So I think you were on the right path, and that our infrastructure is very lagging. And the problem is government. Yeah, because more so I think even than you know, starting one project and stopping another, whatever. The government operates in such a way that there's so many pots of money. And if I have this pot of money and we delegate that pot of money to go to Aurora road construction, but Aurora doesn't need roads right now, that money cannot go anywhere else, ever, because that was what it was earmarked for. So Aurora doesn't need any road construction, and they get more of the tax base because they have more of the people in Colorado Springs kind of gets pooped on. So then our roads get deteriorated and so on and so forth because of the way the government works, rather than saying, oh, we earmarked that money, but we can just slide it over here and make a difference. They don't do that. So government and, what do you call it, it's government, but where government kind of gets involved and can't think of the name of it right now.
Augmented transportation.
Yeah. So, okay.
Sorry. I thought you guys presented the problem really well, but I'm really surprised that you didn't mention like 5A or the, what is it, PPCA thing that's going on right now with the voting. I mean, it's to improve the roads. I'm surprised you put that out there.
I didn't realize that though.
And everybody in here is a voter, so that would have been a good call to action. Just saying.
Vote for 5A, yeah.
Just saying.
So we know you're not politically motivated.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's your citizen's duty to do that, you know.
Don't you listen to the radio?
No, I work 2 jobs and go to school full time.
That's true. Yeah, and see, and that's another thing. That's another thing is a lot of times it's tax levies. So that, you know, who's going to pay for your road? You are. It's not going to be. It's not going to be Washington. And sometimes Washington will give grants and things like that, but we, you know. So if you want that road that looks like it really needs fixed, then you have to. Well, yeah, it's either going to have to. A lot of times, private funding. Just like they wanted to fix a whole bunch of the parks up, and they really couldn't afford it. And they tried a tax levy, and of course that got voted down. And so since they couldn't get the tax money to water the grass and keep them going, and then they went ahead and allowed it to be privately funded. That can always happen too. You get a community center group together and say, you know, hey, we want this. The bad construction also you're talking about that they, you know, that they're not necessarily using the best materials. They're coming through and just kind of doing the job to appease somebody and not necessarily. Yeah,
well, it's always nice to know that the lowest bidder gets the job.
Yeah. Actually, what it is whoever bids the lowest, then they're allowed to publish that lowest rate to a person who is under. Like, I hate to say this, I'm not being trying to be racist or anything else, but there's a group out right now that gets a whole bunch of government contracts because they have a bunch of minorities. It happens to be an Indian minority group. But if you can show minority status in the government, when you're getting government contracts, if you can show minority status, you are a minority. You're not a minority. So you give your lowest bid. His bid would have been the lowest. Then they could come to my company that has Indian in it, and they can say, okay, their bid was this. If you're willing to do it for that, then we have to give it to you because you're a minority. And that's truly what happens. It's the government contract. So that's why my business is owned by me, a woman, rather than my husband, because we're minorities that way.
Way to cheat the system.
Cheat to win. Cheat to win. You know, I wish that there would be more state government and less federal influence on things. The states know better what to do with their stuff. Okay, anything else, guys? Any other groups that did not go, or anybody who was an individual that did not have a teammate? Because everybody gets a grade on this individually. Okay? I did have, not necessarily in this class, but in other classes where a person said I couldn't work with that, I had to leave them behind. And so everybody's, if you're not in a group.
Actually, that did happen in here.
Yeah, that did happen in here. So, yeah, you have to pull your weight. So, as I'm reading through essays, I say self. There are a whole lot of sentence fragments in student papers. And self said, yes, Ms. Benjamin, there really are. And I'm tired of it. Therefore, we're going to look at sentence fragments. Yay. I just get a lot of my students. What's a sentence fragment? Who tell me? Okay, it's not a whole sentence. It's an incomplete sentence. That's really what it is. They call it a fragment because it's part of a sentence. And for some reason, we write them and we believe that it is a complete thought, but it is not. So rather than lie to ourselves every day, we need to go back and revise our papers. Okay. Every sentence has to have what? A subject. Okay, a subject is a noun. It could be a noun. It could be a regular noun like a dog. It could be a pronoun like I, me, right? It could be a proper noun, which would be capitalized. Okay? So it has to have a subject. What else does it have to have?
A verb.
What is a verb?
An action.
Word. Tells what action. Okay, yes, and it's also called a predicate. Okay? So you have to have a subject and a predicate, or a subject and action. Some sort of action. Okay? And then if you put other stuff, that's fine. What's an adverb?
Describing one.
It describes the verb, so you add on to the verb, and what did you say? It's an adverb, therefore it adds on. Yeah, so it describes, like, we run quickly. Adverbs often end with ly, by the way. It doesn't have to, but often. Okay, so you have to have at least a subject and a verb. Where you guys are making mistakes, I generally see it when you start your sentences with words like whether. Whether it be this or that. And then I'm like, so what? Yeah. So I get that. So introductory material, often if you put that introductory clause in there, I find that your sentences aren't complete. So what you need to do is if you use an introductory clause, check that sentence and see that you made the introductory clause, remember, can be covered up, and then the rest of the sentence needs to be a complete sentence. Because I can erase that introductory clause and never even use it. Yeah, my paper would be a bunch of short, blotchy sentences, but I could cover it up and it grammatically make sense. Okay? So what we're going to do is, each of these exercises, we're going to do one at a time, so don't skip to the second one. But on editing practice number 1, it's about Anthony. There's a descriptive paragraph there. There is 3 needless sentence fragments that you need to correct. There's a few ways to correct them. You can either attach it to an adjacent sentence, or you can change the wording a bit and turn the fragment itself into a complete sentence. So sometimes you can delete a couple words, or sometimes you have to change the tense of the verb. Something like that.
The first three?
There's 3 sentences throughout the paragraph that are sentence fragments. You have to find them and fix them. So try it. We should make you do that.
Ms. Benjamin, there are 2 sentences in last page.
There's, what you said, 3?
3 sentence fragments. Tuesday, Thursday PM. Awesome. That's an easy one. Okay, so let's kind of look at these.
Yes.
Who can tell me where the first sentence is incorrect? That's one of them, yeah.
Which one?
His black curly hair.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Up top, the second sentence. His black curly hair,
Yeah.
bushy eyebrows, a cute button nose, and chubby cheeks, which people can't resist pinching. What's wrong with it?
It has no topic.
Yeah, this last sentence.
Yeah. Okay, so his is the subject, right? So that it does have a subject, but there's no action, right? There's no, so he has black curly hair. It says his black curly hair and eyebrows and nose, which people can't resist pinching. You can put a comma there after pinching and then tell them what about it. So his hair is black and then people can't resist pinching. I know he's the heck out of the kid. Or anything like that's fine, but you have to have some sort of action. Or, even better, what can you do? Instead of using...
He is adorable with his bushy eyebrows, a bright, cute button nose, chubby cheeks.
Yeah, so change his to he. So changing the tense.
Or he has, or...
Yeah, so I chose to say he has black curly hair. So he has black curly hair, bushy eyebrows, a cute button nose, and chubby cheeks. Super cute. Seems to stop pinching.
No one's telling me that I would do it that way. I can read it his. I know what he has.
So that's the easiest way to fix it. Or, like I say, you can put a comma after pinching and then finish the sentence. Okay? And then you said, what's the next one?
The and jeans and patches.
Okay.
Patches on the jeans. Now we can put like a comma and then and jeans.
Okay, so that's going to make an awfully long sentence because listen to this sentence. Anthony loves to wear his favorite black leather jacket with pictures of the skull banded on the back and jeans with patches on the knees as a result of the holes he puts in them while crawling on the floor, pushing his toys around. Yeah, okay, so that's going to be a run-on sentence at that point. So instead of putting a comma, what can we do?
He also wears jeans.
Okay, so where would you
Or
put
just
your
take out
period?
the end and put
Well, you take out the
done,
end,
right?
Take it out.
But he also wears jeans.
Okay, you can do that.
Or Anthony's favorite outfit is his favorite black leather jacket with the skull banded on the back, comma, jeans with patches on the knees. I would probably take out as a result of,
Here's
because
how I
that
fixed
doesn't have
it.
anything to do with his outfit.
This is how I fixed it. After back, so with the band on the back, I kept and, but I took out, it's a small case and his favorite jeans, comma, the ones with the patches on the knees, period. Okay? The patches cover the holes that come about from crawling on the floor, pushing his toy car around. Okay? So, by putting a period after knees,
And then you kept it in mind that as a result.
where do we put it as?
Or the patches are a result, something like that.
Band on the back, comma, and jeans with patches on the knee. Period. As a result of the band, he puts them down.
Where's it as?
It's right.
Okay. Yeah, I erased that.
You erase it?
So I just deleted as a result of the holes he puts in the knees, and I just said the patches cover the holes that came about from crawling. Okay, so I did have to change the wording a bit, which is why I gave you lots of space. So my sentence says, I start with that and his favorite jeans, comma, the ones with the patches on the knees, period. The patches covers the holes that come about from crawling. So I took as a result of, and I erased that, right?
Could you keep the, so what I did is I said, I did and jeans with patches on the knees, and then I said as a comma, as a result of the holes he puts in them, and then period, and then just cross out while calling anything.
Yeah. So there's lots of ways to fix that, right? And you just have to tell your writer, hey, this is not a complete thought, you've got this mixed up, you got to fix this. So there's lots of ways to fix it. And then the last one.
For example, that time on the week.
Yeah. Okay. How did you change it?
Is maybe the comma, so period.
Yeah. Or just take off the period there, where the roof is, and then click on there, click on period.
And it should be shimmied, by the way. Okay, well, this kind of makes it redundant. If I just attach it to the other one, and it says, for example, that time on the roof, he shimmied up a tree and jumped onto the roof. Well, now I've had roof twice, and it kind of sounds odd. I just take out that time on the roof. So it says, so I wrote, for example, comma, I will never forget that time he shimmied up a tree and jumped onto the roof. For example, I will never forget that time he shimmied up a tree and jumped onto the roof. Okay, so, and this is, for example, that time on the roof. What's it missing?
Action.
There's no action. What did he do on the roof? Okay. It could say, for example, the time he shimmied up a tree and jumped on the roof. Okay. Or no, that still would be incomplete. For example, I loved that time. Or I remembered that time. Okay, the second one, there are three sentence fragments. But be careful, because there is a way of combining to only make it 2 new sentences. So look at that. Mine does that too.
I don't know why you didn't call me when I was school. You know, I was school that often.
My mom always called me while I'm at work, and I was like, Mom, you know I work. I usually don't mind because it's this kind of job.
Yeah.
Okay, well let's see if we can look at this. Where's the first issue?
Do they know I'm not talking about each other?
Which may help overcome loneliness?
No, I'm not talking about your brother or crazy Uncle Carl, but our pets, our dogs, our hamsters, our junk. That one's fine. That's a quick sentence.
Which may help them overcome loneliness.
Yes. Okay. So it's that sentence that, well, that's one of them. So, which will help them overcome loneliness is not a complete sentence. There's one before that.
I guess studies demonstrating that pets, that one is also incomplete.
Right. Okay, so we're starting here, and it says, studies demonstrating that pets give the elderly a sense of security and companionship. What's wrong with that sentence? Studies demonstrating, demonstrating that pets give elderly a sense of security and companionship. Do what? Studies that demonstrate that, or demonstrating that kind of stuff, aren't true, or are true, or, it could be something like that. Or studies demonstrating that pets give an elderly a sense of security and companionship have been conducted over the last 20 years. You need some sort of content there, okay? Or, even better, why can't I say studies demonstrated that? ED, change demonstrating to demonstrated, right? So studies demonstrated that pets give the elderly a sense of security and companionship. Then it would be a complete sentence.
Could you put a comma there and then push?
There you go. I told you can make it two sentences. So put a comma after that, which should be small case, which may help them overcome loneliness, and then you'll fix Mr. Dawes. Hot tower. Then talk. You guys get where I said to fix it? Everybody? Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you put a comma after companionship, you get to fix both of those sentences. And then there's one more. Yep. Okay. So what's wrong with it?
How does that help?
At times, feeding the fish, walking the dogs, or putting the cat at night
can teach young children a sense of responsibility.
There you go. So you have to combine those. At times, feeding the fish, walking the dog, or putting the cat out at night can teach young children a sense of responsibility. So you have to combine those sentences. And erase these activities, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So sometimes what we do is we get something stuck in our head, like we wrote a sentence. We wrote the sentence, these activities can teach young children a sense of responsibility, and that is a complete sentence, right? And so then we get stuck on that because we don't want to throw anything out. Okay? Guys, guess what? There's not a lot of homework. Just one thing, which is the looking at your. You have the little sheet again. Yeah. In that Everyday Writer, which is the grammar book that you have, please read and be familiar with. And it's on today's date if you need to go back on the calendar and see. Page 105 to 125. And it is on today's date. We're caught up as far as that's concerned. So page 105 to 125 in the Everyday Writer, it's about rhetorical devices, and we're going to be talking about argumentation and rhetorical arguments. Okay? Nothing to write. Yay, you get a weekend of no writing.